Hey, it's Mike Byrnes with another episode of Business Bests. Super excited to give you some good ideas today. Hopefully these videos and this program is helping you increase your success. One of the things that I wouldn't be a good consultant if I didn't say business planning is super important. Us consultants, we live and breathe by it, right? Like so important. And so I can tell you right now that people that plan, it's the one thing in my consulting business that I require, because the people that plan are so much more successful. If you just kind of randomly hope that you're going to do well, it doesn't always work out. But if you have a plan and you have some metrics of success, you're definitely more likely to get there. So right out of the gates, I wanted to talk about 5 things that you shouldn't do with business planning. It's super important to think of these and make sure you don't get stuck into these traps. The number one thing when it comes to business planning that you should avoid is keeping it in your head. I work with a ton of smart people, and they are really, really smart, but they kind of think, oh, I don't need to write it down because, oh, by the way, I have this in my head and I'm going to be fine. But what happens is when they get stuck in the day and day, they get spread a little too thin. They start to think about the in the weeds type of details. They're not looking at that strategic 30,000-foot view of the business. And business plans in their head, nobody can track them. The whole team can't be trying to attain those goals if it's in somebody's head. So you really got to put it on paper, and obviously now the digital age, you can put it online. So one thing that you really should think about is having a well-documented business plan. A second thing to avoid is making it too cumbersome. Unless you're pitching your business, like a new business, to somebody that's going to buy it or invest in it, and there's a whole bunch of requirements that you have to do, and that is probably the only time that you want it to look like an encyclopedia. For the younger people, might not even know what an encyclopedia looks like, but just imagine inches of paperwork. And that reality is, the more that you do that, the more cumbersome it becomes, the less likely you're going to use it. And so I would really encourage you to try to keep it simple. A third thing to avoid is being short-sighted. If you are starting to get in your business plan, a lot of people will say, oh, I'm going to do a 1-year business plan, but they're really only focusing on 3 months, maybe just a month or even a week. And they just change everything too sporadically because they're only looking at those small metrics of success. That's another reason you need a written business plan so you can have those metrics. But if you get a little bit too short-sighted, your business plan can lose its effectiveness. You can have different versions. You can have the 5-10-year business plan. You can have the 1-year business plan, and then you can have different, what I would call project plans or game plans within the business plan. So those shorter-term plans. But you don't want to get too short-sighted because you'll lose the opportunity to think ahead and look for those bigger opportunities. The fourth don't is letting it just gather dust. I too often see, imagine that big, thick encyclopedia just sitting on the shelf and no one ever opens it up, right? So that business plan strategy can really backfire if you set it and then forget it. It's gonna only fall apart. You're not gonna be as effective as you could be. So you really want to start to think about, if you're gonna create a business plan, how often do you go back to it? Do you actually plan within your plan to have strategic meetings to talk about the plan, to make sure you're moving forward, that those metrics of success are actually succeeding? If there's issues, do you have to reevaluate, whatever that might be? So do not be short-sighted, and do not just let it gather dust. Those are really 2 important things when it comes to business planning that I see people make mistakes on. The fifth one, which I think is really important now in today's day and age, is to have it set in stone. Some people say, oh, I'm going to do a 1-year business plan. There's a seasonality for it. I'm going to do that in October, November, December, and I'll be really well prepared. January 1, I'm going to dive in. But then you flash forward to June 6th, and the world has changed. Something in your industry is blown up. A competitor came out of nowhere, whatever it might be. I am going to completely go into AI and do some training and some education on that in future episodes. But AI is going to revolutionize everything. Literally, it's going to change things in the fastest kind of cycles that we've ever seen. So your business plan should have some component of, yes, consistency. You want to stick to the plan. You don't want to kind of pull the rug out from underneath on the business plan, but you have to really be open to making some adjustments so that cycle can actually change. It doesn't always have to be that calendar year type of approach. You might be in June and you realize, wow, things are going to significantly change in my industry, and here's a new approach that we need to take, and then maybe reset those 12 months. So don't be set in stone. Hope those 5 don'ts will help you be more successful. One of the most important things that is really overlooked from time to time when it comes to business planning is to have a mission statement. I really believe nonprofits have an advantage on for-profits here. They're really good about creating a mission statement, and they know why. But the reality is you need to figure out why you're in business and be able to communicate it. And if you can do it in a sentence, maybe 3 sentences, keep it concise, you're going to be more successful with the business plan, but you're actually going to have a whole bunch of benefits that come out of that. So when you create a business plan, I think Simon Sinek did a great speech on this. You can go find it on YouTube, but start with why. The reality is, why are you in business? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And then make sure your mission actually sticks to that. I see a lot of executives or owners, they're really busy people, so they just have a short attention span, or they don't have the patience to do a business plan. And then they don't have the patience then to do a mission statement. A mission statement, although it's so short, it really is wordsmithing and doing different versions and iterations, and it can start to get annoying, but really one word or one phrase can really change the way the business is going to be led, and the business plan is so important. And again, the mission statement is a key part of that. One exercise to do if you have a mission statement is to don't cheat, don't look, write it out right now. Pause this if you're watching it, if you can, and just say, hey, what is the mission statement? And see if you can nail it. Hopefully it's not one of those things you just memorize just so you have every word in place in your brain, but you really can think of the purpose of it and nail it. So you don't have to have it word for word, but you should be pretty close to it. If you haven't done a mission statement before, have some fun. Just jot one out and see what comes out. So exercise 1 is just kind of pausing and writing out what your mission statement is. Number 2 is asking some key stakeholders, what's your mission statement? And really get their feedback. If they have a perception, without looking at your actual mission statement, of if that perception is a little bit different of what your business is and what it's about, it's going to be really an eye-opener. So what are those stakeholders that you should go out to? Key employees, if not all employees, the people that you serve, the people that have been with you the longest, the people that the clients that actually are responsible for your profitability. The biggest clients probably have a bigger say. Some that maybe just are more robust with the words that they use, or they're better marketers or journalists or English majors or whatever it might be. There's a whole bunch of different reasons of why you might choose different people to do this. It doesn't take a lot of time, but there is some thought process in it, so it's not just a 1-minute request. So be sensitive to that. But even strategic alliances, if you're going to do some partnership, it's really kind of cool to see what people would think your mission statement should be. The mission statement is really helpful for a lot of different stakeholders. Number 1 is owners and management. Do you have that direction? What's that guide that you're going to use for your business? And everything falls behind it. So imagine kind of the top of the pyramid is the mission statement, and everything should kind of fall back on that. Day in and day out, do you go back to it and think about, this, I'm at a crossroads and this is a big decision. Does it fit in our mission? Or is it something that is outside of it? If it is outside of it, that's a whole big pause and think about, should the mission statement change, or should you be a little bit more selective with what you're doing on the day in and day out? And that's a really good test, and that's where an effective mission statement will actually help you in those types of situations. Number two, it's obvious, the staff members, all your associates, employees, whatever you call them, should have a pretty good idea what the mission is, and then that helps everybody stay on the same page. You know, the old analogy of like all the oars are rowing in the same direction at the same time. Mission statement is just one tool to help you do that. And it's something that can be really valuable. We'll talk about setting the culture and all that stuff too. Strategic alliances, I really am a big believer of strategic alliances and that ecosystem and creating some kind of partnership that will help both businesses succeed. So, wow, a mission statement could just be a really valuable tool in the courting stage. Like, hey, here's our mission, what's your mission? Kind of see if there's some alignment. That can be really valuable when you're starting to figure out whether you partner together. Later on, it can help actually create more synergies, more ways to partner together and increase each other's success. And actually can be used later on if you're trying to evaluate whether a strategic alliance should be part of your overall plan. If for some reason it's not fitting in with the mission anymore, it might make it easier to make that decision to part ways and to distance yourself from that partnership. Clients, really, you might want to put them first on this list, but they really should know what your mission is. They are paying you money. They should know what they're going to get from you. It's not a list of, your mission isn't a list of services, but it really is, in some ways, promissory of what you're trying to do. You got to be a little careful with legal and compliance that it's not written in a way that you'll get in trouble. But you really should be kind of saying, hey, here's what we're doing for our clients. And then the clients will say, yeah, that's what I want. That's why I'm hiring them. And the mission statement will create that connection to make happy clients. And lastly, in this group, prospects. If you have your mission statement on your website or wherever it might be, in your marketing collateral and an advertisement, et cetera, a prospect can really quickly align with you, and they can make that decision to work with you before they ever meet you. Before they ever come into your office, before they pick up the phone, before they send you an email or a message on social media, whatever it might be, they might see some of the marketing that you put out there. And yes, a mission statement can be part of your marketing because it's helped communicating to them who you are and why you're in business. All right, so you're going to start to work on your mission statement, whether you have it or not. Here's 4 things to consider. One, is it clear and concise? I've seen some mission statements that it's all jargon and it gets really carried on and it goes blah, 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 blah. The more concise you can be, the quicker the message you can get across, usually the better and more effective the mission statement is. So when you get these different types of versions, let's say you're going through an exercise and you have a whole bunch of people create it, then you try to put it together, you're going to actually just start to not want to forget that bad idea and forget that bad idea, and all of a sudden your good ideas start to create this big mountain of words. That's where you really need maybe a professional wordsmither, or even AI is kind of fun. Put it in and say, hey, can you shorten this to X amount of words, and it'll do a pretty great job. Maybe AI company number 1 gives you a version, then you could go to company 2 and company 3, and there's all kinds of different AI options out there. You can see which one you like better, or you can even then put them all into one document and say, merge AI, merge these and come out with one great version. Something that you want to think about is, what's the process look like? How long do you have? Do you have the patience to do it? To really come up with a great one, I think it's important to be clear and concise. Obviously, to go into the whole mission statement writing process, you really, really, really have to have a direction. So that start with why is incredibly important. What are you trying to do? Do you know those answers? Have you thought it through? Have you been in business to test some of this stuff? It might be a little easier or harder, depending on what angle you're coming from, to create the mission statement. I would really encourage you to put some thought into it. Think of your perfect company. Think of what it looks like, futuristic, like envision what it might look like. How do you get there? And then have the mission statement actually help deliver those results. A mission statement is wonderful from a marketing standpoint. You're going to want to think about, how does this connect with those prospects? So what's the right tone in the mission statement? Do you have some brand standards? Do you have a style guide? Are there certain words you like to use? What are those differentiators? If you put out a mission statement, it's the same as the next 10 competitors, what's the point, right? Like, it might help a little bit from a business standpoint, but from a marketing standpoint, it's not going to help you. So how do you get your message across? Are you trying to be bold? Are you trying to be subtle? Are you trying to be direct, kind of in your face tone? Or are you trying to be warm and fuzzy? Know that before you go in, and then you'll be more likely to get what you want at the end. One thing about a mission statement is a little bit futuristic looking, and so you're going to want to try to figure out what you want to be, and so there should be a long-term focus. I will caution you, though, a mission statement is not permanent. You don't want to change it on a whim. You don't want to look at something and just get pulled in a different direction in the short term, and then that actually ends up being a really bad thing, and you should have stayed on course. So you have to be a little bit a little sensitive about when you would make a change. But a business plan, again, a long-term but not permanent. Not that Byrnes Consulting has the best mission statement, but I thought it would just be fun to show you an example of the one that I created. I'm a consultant, so hopefully I didn't drop the ball. I'm actually going to read it. Providing business planning and marketing strategy consulting services to help businesses can become even more successful. Now, I work with a niche, and it's very clear of who I work with, but I actually purposely use the word businesses, and I harped over that, and I still harp over it. But I do want to always have the opportunity to expand my target market if I had to. So I didn't want to limit it. That actually can shoot me in the foot, too, because if the target market reads it and it's a little bit too generic and it doesn't come back to them, I think that's an example of something that it gets a little tricky when you create a mission statement. I also mentioned consulting services in there. I tried to be pretty specific. I hemmed and hawed, like, does consulting services count the speaking that I do when I'm out on the road and giving a keynote or a regional event? Should that say speaking in the mission statement? I kind of came to the belief that consulting services would incorporate giving advice on a stage, but that's where you might want to get some thought into some of these words. Do you have to get that granular? Because my mission statement is one sentence, I think it's more effective than one that's 3 or 4 sentences. So when you try to recall what this is and you ask your employees what this is, if they can't recall it, it's not as effective. So just a little fun. I thought I'd share mine. There's some really great examples out there. If you just Google the best mission statement out there, you can get some samples. I always recommend go outside of your industry first. Then your thinking is a lot more broad, and you're going to be more creative. And then you don't accidentally steal someone else's idea, but you do at some point want to do some competitive research and see what other people have for mission statements. The next phase of business planning that I like to go into is core values. What are the core values, and how do they define the company? Nonprofits especially, they get the value of core values. But I really think that for-profits sometimes drop the ball, or sometimes it's just words on paper, and it's not really how they live their day-to-day. And so I would really, really encourage you to spend some time on your core values. One of the things that you can do is do an exercise, is again, write down what your core values are. If you have them and you have no clue what they are, they're probably not the best core values, right? Or you're doing something wrong in your firm, and I can talk about that in a little bit. But really, that is a great exercise. Write them down, whether you have them or not, and start there. I recommend maybe 5. 3 would be even better. If you get 10 core values, it kind of gets on, a little bit too watered down. So really try to think about what those key themes are, or those key categories, and then try to narrow it down to the best that you can. So number 1 for how to have impactful core values is to make it the foundation. What's that thing that is, everyone's going to go back to, whether it's management or employees, and know that this is what we're all about. And that foundation of your firm and your organization, the core values should be at those major pillars that hold the whole company up. The core values should also have some defining metrics that could eventually be attached to them to make sure your business is going forward, that it's going to succeed. The core values aren't just fluffy things, the warm, fuzzy types of things. They're actually going to try to help you be better at your business, have a competitive advantage, deliver the best services, whatever it might be. I don't want to put words in your head of what the core values should be, but they should be pretty specific enough to then actually have some business metrics behind them. To have impactful core values, similar to the mission statement, they're long-term, but they don't have to be permanent. So what are those things that you really want to be known for years, and how would they define your business? Make sure that you're starting to think about what that would look like down the road, and then actually create, reverse engineer what the core values should be. Core values can be a marketing tool too. They can make a really great connection. So for example, if you had philanthropy or some kind of charitable component, and you have a prospect that's checking you out and they happen to go to your core values page, they might make a great connection. And you might actually want to have the core values, whatever it might be, demonstrated throughout your whole website so that people can get a feel that it's just not words on paper or typed into to a web page. That actually is something that it's true and you live and you breathe it. One of the things that you want to do is really have something that is clear. You can't have things that are too abstract. If you don't really know how it's going to get into the day-to-day, and people don't maybe have examples of what the day-to-day would look like, the core values just aren't going to resonate, right? They're not going to be able to make that connection. So get into the weeds a little bit of what that would look like. So imagine you do core values and you have 5. Maybe it's just a phrase, maybe 3 words for that core value, but you can actually write a sentence or even a paragraph underneath it, or you can show examples. Visuals are wonderful. You can prove it with pictures or videos. Super impactful. But core values can be really powerful for that reason, so make sure you do that too. Really at the foundation of a company's culture are the core values, and if you define them, you're much more likely to create one of those workplaces people want to work with. Are they going to get out of bed excited to come into work? And if they aren't, maybe you're having some issue with your core values. If you have a retention issue and you can't keep employees, if those associates are leaving, why are they disgruntled? So maybe you take all those complaints, whatever they might be, and then start to look at how could you change your core values to incorporate the good people that you want to keep for a long term. So they can be used for unity reasons, but they also can be a barometer of your employees' success. Are they fitting into the core values? And actually, that could even be a metric in their compensation and their annual reviews. It shouldn't be just, and that's the nice thing about core values that aren't just fluffy and made up. Like if you can actually bring it down to the individual and say, hey, this was a core value and we actually didn't see that you executed it, or we did, and give them management advice on how to be better if they need it, or reward them and even publicly reward them to the outside world, or even just kind of an employee get-together, annual meeting, or a weekly message to employees, or whatever it might be. Give the person recognition for being great at what they did, and that will support your core values. It'll kind of reinforce that to the employees, so something that might be a best practice down the road. The core values work really, really well with the mission statement and eventually the business plan, and everything kind of pulls together. The business plan really will count on the mission statement and the core values, and they all interact with each other. The whole synergy part of it, if one thing's kind of out of the line, it's not going to work well. So make sure you come up with some great core values and think about how you can define your firm internally and externally, and it can be a wonderful tool there. All right, so exercise number 1. After you figure out maybe core values are important, you have them or you don't have them, I want you to do this exercise. Push this out to at least the key employees or associates, but if everybody can be a part of this, it's even better. And ask them, what are the core values of the firm? That could be the simple version. A more complicated version would be, okay, what are they? Do you think they are currently, and what should they be? But imagine you work at a company that has 10 people versus 500, right? It gets a little bit more difficult. You can't make everybody happy, but I think you can actually try to summarize these things into certain categories. And you can give them feedback about how you went through the process to create the core values. But reality is, honesty you might hear the word honesty or integrity or always wanting to do the right thing for the client or whatever those types of things, and you can kind of group them and then come up with the right wording for whatever that category head would be. Then once you kind of get those categories, then the next evolution for creating your core values is getting into the wordsmith part of it. What would you show as the core value? So if people had to come down, what's the top 5, what are the 5 core values, and they can list it, but then maybe what's the sentence or 2 that would describe it, kind of like a subhead. Exercise 2 with core values. You've heard me talk about client research all the time and why it's so important. This is a fun one to do with your clients, and just say, hey, can you do me a favor and just write down what you think our core values are? This is a really valuable way to get research on what their perception of the firm is. So that could be really great for gauging satisfaction, for getting a sense of if you're delivering what they are hoping for, if you're overwhelming or underwhelming them. There's a lot of cool information that comes from open-ended questions. So think about what that might look like and how you would structure it. But value what they say. The reality is it matters more in their heads than it does probably your head, right? What the core values are. So if there's some big disconnect, why is that? Do a little research, drill a little deeper. If you do see some disconnect, that's probably another reason to do further research, whether you hire a facilitator or not. But I think that's really important. Don't just do it in one-on-one meetings like we've talked about in the past. Think about maybe doing a survey or actually doing a focus group. This could be a really cool venue. A focus group could be a really cool venue to discuss something like this and actually have some of the people kind of go back and forth and feed off of each other. You don't have to be behind the one-way mirror. If you have a good facilitator, they'll record the conversation and kind of get it back to you. So it could just be going out to a nice steakhouse or a hotel that has kind of like that banquet area that you could section off and get them around a big long table and have this type of discussion. So just use Byrnes Consulting as an example so you can kind of see how I think and understand kind of the thought process that I went through. I won't read all of it, but integrity and professionalism's right out of the gate, number one. I'm a big believer of being truthful. There are times where I probably have said something and I lost a client maybe about it, or I didn't sugarcoat something and somebody got upset at me. Is probably more likely to what has happened. But I'd be doing my client a disservice if I didn't come out and say what I saw and how they can improve. Doesn't mean you can't sugarcoat it sometimes, but that's a key to what I do. And I get paid well, and so if somebody doesn't want to hear positive criticism or doesn't want to hear how to improve, they're wasting their money, right? So that right out of the gate, that's why I put that one first. It is something that it's just not words. Like I'm an honest person to a fault. Sometimes it can be a weakness. Like if I was interviewing for a job right out of college, they would say, "What's your biggest weakness?" I'd be like, "I'm too honest." You kind of take that negative and make it into a positive. That's how I always trained when I was graduating from school, at least. But think about what that core value should be right out of the gate. What's that one thing that distinguishes you? For me, number 2 is education and excellence. Really trying to teach people everything I know in whatever category it is so they can succeed. And so that's why right out of the gate, that's number 2. And that's where I think that a lot of people can start to think about their core values and what's that promise that you're kind of delivering, and is there a core value that you can associate with that? Number 3 for me is win-win relationships. I'm big on building partnerships. I don't think about it as like me ever talking down to somebody. I kind of want to be their, in some ways, their best friend that they come to for advice and try to help them succeed. The other thing is I try to have a friendly approach. Like that's part of my core value. I don't need to be the guy with the tie and the Rolex watch and trying to talk down to people and try to intimidate people, try to be jerky to motivate people. That's not who I am, and so that's part of my core value. And the other one is community. I'm a big believer in making the world a better place, and that really ties in with just wanting to help people. I did a whole segment, a couple segments on cause-related marketing, so kind of watch those videos if you haven't seen them. But that's part of who I am. I do see a lot of people, they create core values and they don't they just put something in there fluffy about community service, and it's not for real. So don't do that. I hope this advice has been helpful. This is Mike Byrnes, and I'm putting out this information with another episode of Business Bests. I really hope that it's helping you succeed.